If you're applying to school leadership roles and you haven't been hearing anything back, I know exactly how frustrating that can be. And I'm going to tell you the real reason why it keeps happening. By the end of this episode, you'll not only know the number one reason why you haven't been landing interviews, but you'll also know exactly how to fix it. What's going on, aspiring school leader? I am Dr. Donovan Smalls II, and welcome to Beyond the Classroom. I help aspiring school leaders land their first leadership role and make an immediate impact on teaching and learning. Today's topic is the number one reason you're not landing interviews and how to fix it. Now, when it comes to landing your first school leadership role, you obviously have to go through the interview process, which is going to include a number of steps that we are going to talk about in this episode. And I want to make sure that you are properly prepared to make that leap into school leadership. And it obviously begins with the interview process. So before we get into the number one reason you're not landing interviews and how to fix it, I want to talk about the number one myth that I've been seeing a lot of people have as it relates to landing that first leadership role. And just from doing some market research, but also looking into some of the Facebook groups specifically targeted toward assisting and helping aspiring leaders get to the next step in their career, this has been the number one myth as it relates to why aspiring leaders haven't been landing that role. And that is, if I have the experience, I should be getting interviews. And although you might have 10, 15, 20 years of classroom teaching experience, that does not necessarily mean you are going to be a great school leader. And I know that that might be a harsh reality for people to face, but it is true. 20 plus years in the classroom doesn't guarantee leadership readiness or visibility. So there's two parts to that, right? Just because you have 20 plus years of teaching experience, of being in the classroom, of understanding what teaching and learning actually looks like, doesn't all automatically equate to leadership. Doesn't automatically equate to you having a leadership disposition. Doesn't automatically equate to you having a level of emotional intelligence that gives you the opportunity or the ability to handle the weight of leadership. We're talking about leadership as a skill set. We're talking about leadership as in the way that you carry yourself, right? You being able to hold space for the concerns of other people, but also leading them regardless of how they feel, not to be disrespectful, not to discredit how they feel, but also to understand that you are a part of leading an organization which requires you to make tough decisions that sometimes people just aren't going to like. The other side of that is visibility. Right. And so although you might have the 20 or the 15 years of teaching experience, do people actually know that you want to get into leadership? Do people actually know what your goals and your dreams are? Like, what is your timeline in terms of wanting to step into that first leadership role? Do people know? Because if people don't know, then they aren't able to assist you and point you in the right direction in terms of mentorship, in terms of coaching, in terms of opportunities to prepare you for that role. There are specific things that you need to be working on while you are a teacher. I understand time is limited. I understand you only have one or two prep periods, and depending on your situation, right, you might not have a break consistently. But you have to be able to figure out ways to get the experience now as a classroom teacher to make that successful transition. Hiring teams aren't just looking for experience. They're looking for leaders. And if your resume, your cover letter, or interview can't prove that, you're invisible. I know you're enjoying this episode, but I wanted to let you know about my latest book, Beyond the Classroom, helping aspiring school leaders navigate interpersonal and organizational complexities for greater instructional impact. Now, this book is going to help you navigate the learning curve as you transition from being a classroom teacher to a school leader, manage your busy schedule and reclaim your time to effectively be an instructional leader, take a holistic approach towards school leadership, and increase your instructional impact by fostering a school culture of feedback and coaching. So if you are an aspiring school leader looking to be an effective practitioner, head over to my website and grab your copy today. Again, another harsh reality. I was looking in a Facebook group. This Facebook group was targeted towards helping aspiring leaders and even giving advice to current assistant principals about getting to the next level. And I noticed the frustration of one person that posted in the group. They were talking about the number of the years of experience that they have and just their frustration, right? They were expressing their level of expertise and their frustration. And I wondered to myself, well, does anybody know that you want to be a leader? What gaps in your leadership do you currently have that you are addressing? Do you have somebody, a coach or a mentor, that can speak to the areas in your leadership that you might not be able to see, because we all have blind spots? And so that could be your situation. It could be your reality. But when it comes to coaching and mentorship, that is really the cheat code toward getting to where you want to be. I've helped aspiring school leaders gain clarity on their leadership journey, gain clarity on their leadership identity, tell a stronger story, right? Because when it comes to that interview process, you have to make sure that your resume is telling a story, your leadership story, and not just a list of responsibilities and roles and tasks that you participated in, that you are responsible for. Right? That's the difference. I've helped aspiring school leaders walk into interviews with a renewed sense of confidence. For many, it wasn't about them doing more. It was about finally seeing and communicating the value they already bring. Sometimes it takes someone else to see the talents, the gifts and the skills and abilities that we have, and to call that out and to bring that out in a way that makes sense to us, right? Because we don't always see ourselves. It's easy to see the greatness in other people, but it's harder to see the greatness in ourselves. And so once you get a coach or a mentor, somebody that can help you sift through and really cohesively explain your leadership story, that's when things are going to be taken to the next level. So as we get into the number one reason you're not landing interviews and how to fix it, the number one reason is that you're not positioning yourself as a school leader. You're still showing up like a teacher who wants a promotion. So when we talk about positionality, that is extremely important, right? Again, we're talking about the disposition, the way that you're showing up. Are you showing up as an instructor, a teacher who knows exactly how to move teaching and learning forward in the classroom, which is extremely important and is an essential aspect of being a school leader? But are you also communicating and showing and demonstrating your leadership capabilities, your ability to lead teams, your ability to mentor and coach other people, your ability to make tough decisions? What professional development opportunities have you really got into that you were leading, right? Leading adults. Those are the type of things that you need to start bringing out. And I'm sure that you've already been doing those things, but have you been communicating that? So when it comes to not being positioned, right? Not positioning yourself as a school leader, I'm talking about your resume reads like a teacher. When you first get that teaching job, you don't have much experience prior, right? Your first teaching job, you might be coming straight out of college, or you might have done something prior to teaching. And so you have a list of roles and responsibilities that you are explaining, the tasks that you actually were responsible for. And that was pretty much the sum total of what your resume looked like. But when it comes to school leadership, what is the journey that you went on? Why do you want to get into school leadership? You know, that question, that first question that typically comes in an interview is, tell me a little bit about yourself. And you don't want to miss the mark, right? Because that is your opportunity to really talk about your leadership journey, to map it, to really give people insight into who you are. So that's where you want to truly take advantage of your storytelling ability and tapping into your skills, your abilities, your talents that actually shows your leadership journey. What does it also look like in terms of positionality? You can't articulate your leadership story, which we kind of talked about, right? We just talked about that. Your leadership story is what gives people insight into the type of leader that you're going to be. So for example, when it comes to my leadership journey, right, I started off as a graduate teaching assistant at the college level. I was also a college basketball coach. And then I transitioned to being a health and physical education teacher for 6 years. From there, I was a professor. From there, I went back to the K through 12 space. And then I became a school leader. And so you might look at some of the experiences that I had and might wonder, wow, this guy has so many different experiences that aren't necessarily streamlined with K through 12. Like, how did it even work? But again, this is my opportunity to talk about the positives, right? The range of experiences that I had to not only allow people and hiring committees to see what my experiences were and what they are, but also to understand how to get students to where they need to be. Because I've taught K through 12 and at the higher ed education, the higher ed level. So what that means is not only do I understand where students are, but also where they need to go and what supports they need. So when I talk about your leadership story, I'm actually trying to get you to understand that your story has value. Your story, when you articulate it correctly, is able to give people an opportunity to see how great of a leader that you actually can be, like your range of experiences and how people can glean from that and become better teachers, become better students as a result of all of the things that you went through. So you have to be able to craft a leadership story. And then also in terms of what positionality, like why you're positioning yourself as a teacher and not necessarily a leader, you're not making your instructional impact clear. How have you moved student achievement forward? Yes, it might be specifically in the classroom, but what have you also done maybe at a school-wide level, on a department level, that you've looked at data and you broke it down and you used formative and summative assessments to move things forward? What have you done instructionally, and have you communicated that clearly? So here's what real positioning sounds like. Here's how I led a team to improve student outcomes. You might communicate that in an interview or on your cover letter. Here's how I navigated resistance from colleagues. Or here's how I made data-informed decisions. Do you see the difference? Yes, you are a teacher, but at the same time, you're giving people a glimpse into the leadership capabilities that you have. And you know, sometimes when it comes to interviews, it can be tough. I understand. You know, I went on 2 different interviews before landing my first leadership role. And, it was really that second interview where I really started to understand storytelling, where I really started to understand the importance of having a comprehensive portfolio, right? To be able to communicate that well, not just on paper, but also show the leadership strengths and showing up with a leadership disposition that people are attracted to. And to be honest, it wasn't just me. It wasn't the insight that I had, right? Like I said earlier, everyone has blind spots. So for me, it really took coaching and mentorship. I would not be where I am if I didn't have highly effective coaches and mentors who were able to pour into me and give me insight and allow me to see the exact talents that I had, the stories that I had that could actually move people forward, move teaching and learning forward. And I understand, right? You may be thinking, I'm smart, I'm capable, I know what I'm doing, I have the years of experience. But my question would be, have you ever learned how to market yourself? Have you learned how to speak highly of yourself in a humble way? Not arrogance, but being confident. And coaching isn't about your ability, it's about strategy. Coaching is a strategy to help you get to that level. And sometimes, if you're a person that might not have a coach or a mentor that you can glean from, that is nearby, that is in your sphere of influence and network, you might have to reach out and make some sort of investment. And I understand, right, that hearing the word investment can be a little bit disheartening for you, right? You might think of it as something that you feel like you don't have to do. But my question would be, how much is it costing you to stay in your current position when you know that you're called for greater? How much is it costing your school community or the community that you are currently living in if you don't take that next step in making that investment in yourself? Coaching is an investment in yourself that pays you back in influence, in impact, and in income. So what you actually need to do is, if you want to land interviews and step into leadership, here's what has to change. You have to rework your resume to highlight leadership results. Develop a compelling leadership story. Practice high-stakes interview responses and shift from a teacher mindset to a leadership mindset. And this is exactly what I help aspiring school leaders do in my Elevate Your Impact coaching program. Whether it's in 4 weeks, in 8 weeks, or a focused 90-minute intensive, this isn't just coaching. It's a targeted transformation designed to help you stop getting passed over and finally position yourself as the obvious choice. Because talented educators like you shouldn't be waiting for permission. You should be walking into your next opportunity fully prepared and fully confident. So if you're ready to stop spinning your wheels and get off the hamster wheel of trying to do everything by yourself, and you know that you need assistance, you know that you need a coach, you know that you need a mentor, I would love to help you. Schedule your call today, and let's talk about how we can get you to where you know you need to be. If you've enjoyed this episode, make sure that you share it with someone else. I'd love to connect with you on a weekly basis so that we can continue this conversation to help you get to the next level. As always, I hope you have a great week of teaching, leading, and learning. Take care.
I love that you talked about mindset, because mindset is extremely important as you become a school leader. And so that leads us into our second complexity, which is navigating the learning curve, right? Whenever you are promoted to the next level in your career, you will always begin as a novice. So it doesn't matter that you were an effective classroom teacher, you have raving reviews from your students. Becoming a school leader is a different skill set. And so we need to start teaching aspiring school leaders that it takes a level of emotional intelligence and self-awareness to understand Just because you got results doesn't mean you're going to get results here. You need to work at this. And so one of the things I constantly think about is the fact that the learning curve can be steep. As a teacher, I'm walking into the building with a set schedule. As a leader, I might have a set schedule if I'm planning properly, but it might immediately become obsolete as soon as I walk in the building. The learning curve that I had to navigate was I'm walking in the building with my bags on. Teachers are firing questions at me. I haven't even made it to my desk yet. How am I navigating that? With being tactful.